"She's just a waitress," they said, laughing. What could she possibly do? But they didn't know. They didn't know the quiet power she held in the palms of her hands. In that moment, Ava Johnson stood at the edge of a decision that would change everything, even though no one had even noticed her yet. It was just another busy night at the Waitress Lounge in San Francisco, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, where the elite gathered to drink, eat, and flaunt their wealth. The dim lighting reflected off the polished surfaces, casting shadows over the well-dressed crowd. The air smelled faintly of truffle oil and expensive bourbon, and the soft clink of glasses was punctuated by quiet laughter. Ava moved seamlessly through the crowd, serving drinks, refilling wine glasses, and silently observing the world around her. But tonight something was different. In the back of the room, Lucas Grant, the billionaire CEO of Grant Technologies, stood nervously, his eyes scanning the room. His daughter, Sophia Grant, had vanished. She'd been with him just moments ago, a bright light in the sea of suits and ties, but now she was gone, and no one seemed to care. Ava saw it all, the panic in Lucas's eyes, the whispers among his colleagues, the indifferent expressions of the other guests. They were too busy trying to impress one another to notice the man who had everything was losing what mattered most. As she walked past him, she could hear snippets of conversation, mostly about business deals and stock options. But then Lucas's voice cut through the chatter. "Where is she? Someone must have seen her." His voice was sharp, desperate, but it didn't seem to faze anyone. Ava paused for a moment, then continued on her way. She wasn't sure what it was, but something about the way Lucas Grant was acting caught her attention. She knew what it was like to be invisible, to be overlooked, to be treated like you didn't matter. Ava had spent years working in high-end restaurants like this, serving people who never looked her in the eye, who spoke to her like she was nothing. But she'd learned something over the years. She'd learned that silence was powerful. She'd learned that sometimes the people who were ignored were the ones who knew the most. She didn't know why Lucas's desperation made her feel this way, but she couldn't ignore it. She couldn't stand by and let him suffer when she knew she could help. Ava took a deep breath and made her way to the back of the lounge, where she'd seen Sophia last. The sound of her footsteps was almost drowned out by the loud conversations in the dining room. As she turned the corner, she saw it. Sophia was crouched in a dark corner near the kitchen door, her hands covering her face as she sobbed. Ava's heart sank. No one had noticed her missing until now. No one had bothered to look for her. But Ava had. She wasn't just a waitress. She was someone who saw, someone who understood. And in that moment, Ava made her choice. She walked over to Sophia, knelt beside her and whispered, "You're safe now." Ava gently helped Sophia sit up, her small trembling frame still hiding behind her hands. The young girl's face was streaked with tears, her eyes red and puffy from crying. Ava's voice was soft yet firm as she spoke again. "It's okay, you're safe here." Ava's words didn't hold the same tone of authority that came from someone used to handling difficult situations, but instead, they carried the weight of experience, the kind of experience only someone who had been ignored, overlooked, and underestimated could truly understand. Sophia looked up at her with wide, fearful eyes. For a moment, the air around them felt thick, heavy, as if the entire restaurant had come to a screeching halt, the weight of their invisible battle pressing down on both of them. Ava didn't know the exact reason why she felt compelled to help, but she knew she couldn't walk away. The world had always pushed her to the edges, made her feel invisible. But now, standing in front of this girl, she felt seen. Sophia sniffled, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just wanted to get away." Her voice was shaky, barely above a whisper. Ava gave a small nod, understanding the silent plea in Sophia's words. "No one has the right to make you feel small," Ava said, offering a reassuring smile. She paused, glancing back towards the main room of the lounge, where the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses continued to echo, oblivious to the quiet drama unfolding just steps away. Ava knew the powerful people inside wouldn't care. They would never look for Sophia the way she had. But in that moment, Ava was all Sophia had. "Come on," Ava said, helping her to her feet. "I'll take you somewhere safe." Ava led her through the back hallways, the hum of distant chatter growing quieter with each step they took. She couldn't help but feel the weight of her own journey as she walked alongside Sophia, guiding her toward an exit that might just offer a sliver of comfort. As they stepped into the cool night air, the city lights flickered in the distance, casting long shadows across the empty streets. Ava could feel Sophia's uncertainty, her hesitance, but also the quiet strength that had yet to emerge. Ava glanced down at her, giving her a small reassuring smile. "You're not alone," she said. The words seemed simple, but for Sophia they were more than that, they were a promise. Ava couldn't help but think of her own past, of how many times she had been left in the shadows, how many times her own voice had gone unheard. But that was before. Before she had learned the power of seeing others. Before she had learned that being overlooked didn't mean you were invisible. In the distance, the lights of the restaurant flickered behind them, growing smaller with each step. Ava could feel the weight of the city's expectations lifting, even if just for a moment. For once it was just her and Sophia. Two women in a world that didn't always know how to value them. They didn't need anyone else's validation. All they needed was the strength they could give each other. And in that quiet moment, Ava felt a sense of purpose that had eluded her for so long. This was her chance to rewrite the script, to show Sophia that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could shift the entire balance of power. Ava led Sophia through the quiet streets of San Francisco, the distant hum of traffic a stark contrast to the silence they shared. The cool night air was a welcome change from the tension of the restaurant, but Ava could feel the weight of the moment hanging over them. Sophia, still trembling, walked beside her, her eyes constantly flicking around as though she expected someone to appear at any moment. Ava could see the fear in her, the uncertainty that came from being so young and alone, lost in a world that had forgotten her. Ava didn't know where they were going exactly. She wasn't sure what she could do to make Sophia feel truly safe, but she knew she couldn't just leave her in the dark. Not like this. "You're doing good," Ava said softly, offering a reassuring glance. Sophia didn't respond, but Ava saw her shoulders relax just a little. Ava had spent her life in the shadows, always a part of the background, always overlooked. She had learned to survive by keeping her head down, by doing her job without asking for anything in return. But tonight something had changed. Tonight she wasn't just going through the motions. Tonight she was making a difference. They walked in silence for a while longer before Ava finally spoke again. "You know," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I've been in your shoes. I know what it's like to feel like you don't matter, to be invisible." Sophia glanced up at her, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. Ava offered a small smile, the kind that reached her eyes, the kind that said she understood. "But you're not invisible, Sophia," she continued. "You've got more power than you think. You've got more strength than anyone in that restaurant could ever see." It was a simple truth, but for the first time Ava believed it. She could see that same strength in Sophia, hidden behind the fear and uncertainty. Sophia was so much more than just a young girl in distress. She was someone who had the potential to stand tall, to speak up, and to make her voice heard. And Ava was determined to help her find that voice. They reached a small park, the benches empty and the swings swaying gently in the breeze. Ava led Sophia to one of the benches, motioning for her to sit. "I think we could both use a rest," Ava said, her voice soft but steady. Sophia hesitated for a moment before sitting down. Ava sat beside her, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. For the first time that night, Ava allowed herself to breathe. It had been a long time since she had done something just for someone else, but now, as she looked at Sophia, she realized it was the right thing to do. "You're not alone anymore," Ava said, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "And no matter what happens, I've got your back." Sophia nodded, her expression softening as she began to let go of some of the fear that had gripped her all evening. Ava could see it in her eyes, the slow, tentative steps toward trust. And in that moment, Ava knew that they had both found something they hadn't expected tonight. A connection. A chance to rewrite their stories. Ava glanced down at Sophia, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. She had come to this city with nothing but the hope of making a living, of surviving another day. But now she was doing something far greater. She was showing Sophia that she mattered. She was teaching her that kindness could be the most powerful thing in a world that often overlooked the quiet ones. Ava sat quietly beside Sophia, the sounds of the city distant, almost forgotten as they both sat in the park, taking in the rare moment of peace. Ava had helped Sophia, but in many ways she realized she was helping herself too. Her entire life had been about surviving, about being overlooked, underestimated, and being pushed to the side. But in this small moment, in this small act of kindness, she felt something shift. Sophia, still hesitant but more relaxed, shifted slightly on the bench, her eyes wandering as if taking in everything that had happened. "I don't know what I would have done without you," Sophia murmured, her voice soft but sincere. Ava turned to face her, offering a small smile. "You would have been okay," she said. "But you don't have to do it alone. Not anymore." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of their experiences hanging in the air. Ava didn't need to say much. Sophia's quiet presence spoke volumes, and Ava could sense her slowly opening up, trusting her in ways she hadn't with anyone before. "I'm not used to people looking out for me," Sophia confessed, her voice quieter now. "It's just, people always see me as the billionaire's daughter. Like that's all I am." Ava felt a sharp pang in her chest. She knew exactly how that felt. People had always seen her as just the waitress, never as someone who had a life beyond the table she served. "You're more than that," Ava said firmly, her voice steady. "You're a person. Not a title, not a position. And that's something nobody can take away from you." Sophia's gaze softened as she looked at Ava, her eyes searching, almost as if she was trying to understand this new perspective. It wasn't just Ava's words that made her feel seen. It was the quiet strength behind them. Ava had lived her life in the background, always unnoticed, always standing in the shadows. But now, for the first time, she saw that she had power, the power to make a difference. The power to help others rise just like she was learning to do. Do you think I could change things?" Sophia asked, her voice full of uncertainty. Ava looked at her, searching her face for the doubt that had clouded her own thoughts for years. But it wasn't there. Instead, she saw someone who was just starting to believe in herself, just starting to see that her worth wasn't tied to her father's name or his wealth. "I think you already have," Ava replied. "You've taken the first step. The rest will follow." Sophia nodded, her lips parting slightly as though she was beginning to understand. The doubt that had once clouded her eyes seemed to fade, and in its place was a glimmer of hope. Ava had given her a gift, the gift of seeing herself for who she truly was, not who the world wanted her to be. It was a quiet revolution, but a revolution nonetheless. As the night wore on, Ava and Sophia stood up from the bench, ready to leave the park. The streets of San Francisco stretched out before them, the lights twinkling in the distance. Ava looked at Sophia, the girl who had once been invisible, and saw the spark of something powerful beginning to take root. Together they had taken the first step. And that was all it took. They were no longer alone, no longer invisible. They were rewriting their stories one step at a time. Ava and Sophia had walked the streets of San Francisco for hours, the city now quiet under the late-night sky. The world around them seemed to have faded away, leaving just the two of them, two women, once invisible, now connected by something neither of them could quite define. Ava could feel a shift inside her, a sense of pride that had been missing for so long. It wasn't about the paycheck or the job or the acknowledgement from anyone else. It was about what she had done for Sophia. It was about what they had done together. As they reached a small cafe, Sophia turned to her with a hesitant smile. "Thank you," she said softly. Ava met her gaze, and for a moment, the silence between them was thick with meaning. "You don't have to thank me," Ava replied, her voice steady, but with a softness that was new to her. "This was never just about helping you. It was about helping both of us." Sophia paused for a moment, then nodded slowly, as if the weight of the night was finally settling in. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," she said, almost to herself. "Someone who actually sees me." Ava's heart tightened, but she didn't look away. She had been seen before, but only for what others thought she was. A waitress, a service worker, someone who could be dismissed. But tonight she wasn't just Ava Johnson. She was someone who had made a difference, who had been a part of something bigger than herself. "I see you, Sophia," Ava said quietly, her voice filled with an unexpected warmth. "I see the strength in you. You just have to remember that when things get hard." Sophia smiled, a true smile this time, and it felt like the first real smile she had given in a long while. "I'll remember," she promised. Ava watched her, and in that moment, She saw a future unfolding. One where neither of them had to hide in the shadows anymore. They were no longer bound by the roles the world had given them. Ava had shown Sophia that there was more to life than what others saw. There was strength in vulnerability, power in kindness, and a quiet revolution in simply being true to oneself. What now? Sophia asked after a long pause, her voice almost hesitant. Ava thought for a moment, then smiled, her eyes shining with something new. Now, she said, we keep going. We keep showing up. We keep doing what's right, even when no one else is watching. Sophia nodded, her eyes reflecting a new sense of determination. We're not invisible anymore, are we? Ava shook her head, her heart swelling with pride. No, we're not. And we never will be again. Together they stood in the middle of the quiet street, two women who had found something far more valuable than fame, wealth, or status. They had found themselves and each other. And that, Ava realized, was worth more than anything the world could offer. Ava walked alongside Sophia, the cool night air wrapping around them as they strolled through the quieter parts of the city. The sounds of their footsteps echoed lightly on the pavement, a soft rhythm to match the calm that had settled between them. Ava had never felt this way before, so at peace, so sure of herself and her place in the world. It had taken years of quiet endurance, years of being the one who was invisible, overlooked. But tonight had changed everything. I've been thinking, Sophia began, her voice breaking the silence. Ava turned to her, offering a small smile. Yeah, she replied. Sophia hesitated for a moment, her eyes searching the streets ahead of them. I've been thinking about what you said, about being more than just the billionaire's daughter. Ava's smile softened and she nodded. It's true. You are. You have so much more to offer the world than just your name. I know, Sophia said, her tone steady now. I've always known it. I just didn't know how to show it. Ava paused, then placed a hand gently on Sophia's shoulder. Sometimes all it takes is believing in yourself. Once you do that, the rest falls into place. The words felt familiar to Ava, as though she had heard them in her own mind 1,000 times. She had spent so long believing she was just a waitress, just someone who didn't matter. But now, as she looked at Sophia, she realized that was no longer true. They were both more than the role society had given them. They were both people with the power to change their own destinies. The conversation shifted, as it often did when two people were starting to truly understand each other. They spoke of their pasts, their struggles, their dreams. Ava shared how she had come to terms with her own worth, how she had learned to stand tall even when no one else saw her. Sophia, in turn, spoke of her fears, the pressure of being constantly compared to her father, the feeling that no one ever saw the real her. I think I'm ready to step away from all of that, Sophia said, her voice stronger now. I want to do something that's mine, not something that's tied to my family's name. Ava's heart swelled with pride. She could see it now, the spark in Sophia's eyes, the same spark that had been ignited in her own heart over the past few hours. That's the first step, Ava said, her voice full of certainty. You already have what it takes. You just need to take it. As they continued walking, Ava felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. She wasn't just guiding Sophia anymore. She was guiding herself too. They were both on a path of discovery, a path that would lead them to places they had never imagined. For the first time, Ava didn't feel like the background character in someone else's story. She felt like the author of her own life. And that feeling, that sense of control, was more powerful than anything she had ever experienced. The streetlights flickered as they passed, casting long shadows on the pavement. The night was far from over, and there was still much to be done. But Ava knew one thing for certain. She and Sophia had already started something important. They had started to rewrite their stories, to show the world that they were more than what others saw. And that, Ava realized, was all that mattered. Ava and Sophia stood at the entrance of a small cafe, the warm glow from the inside inviting them in. The night had been long, and they had walked the streets together, talking about everything and nothing at all. For the first time in ages, Ava felt a sense of peace settle in her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. She had spent so much of her life feeling like a ghost, drifting in the background, unnoticed, invisible. But tonight something had changed. She was finally visible, not just to the world but to herself. Sophia looked at her with a new light in her eyes, one that reflected the trust and hope Ava had given her. "Do you think it's possible?" Sophia asked quietly, her voice carrying the weight of the question. Ava tilted her head, studying her for a moment. "What's possible? Do you think I can really make a difference?" Sophia's words hung in the air, her uncertainty palpable. Ava thought for a moment, then smiled gently. "I think you've already started making a difference. You've taken control of your story. Now it's just about living it." Sophia's lips curved into a small smile, but Ava could see the flicker of doubt that still lingered. "But how do I keep going when it gets hard? How do I stay strong when everything feels like it's falling apart?" Ava paused, looking down at the sidewalk before meeting Sophia's gaze again. "You don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to feel weak, to feel lost. But as long as you keep moving forward, even in the smallest ways, you're making progress. You're never as alone as you think." Sophia nodded, her expression softening, as though Ava's words had planted a seed of hope in her. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was filled with understanding, the kind that only comes from sharing a journey with someone who truly sees you. "I think I can do this," Sophia said, her voice steady now, filled with a quiet confidence Ava hadn't heard from her before. "I think I'm ready." Ava's heart swelled with pride. In that moment, she saw something in Sophia that had been hidden before. Strength, resilience, a quiet power that had always been there, but had been buried under the weight of others' expectations. "I'm proud of you," Ava said softly. "You're already doing it." They stepped into the cafe, the warmth inside a welcome relief from the chill of the night. Ava found them a small table near the window, and as they sat down, she felt a sense of belonging settle over her. It wasn't about the place they were in or the people around them. It was about the two of them sharing this moment, this journey. They didn't need the approval of anyone else. They had each other, and for the first time in a long while that felt like enough. As they sat there, sipping their coffee and talking about their plans, Ava realized that this was just the beginning. There was so much more to do, so much more to discover. But with Sophia by her side, Ava knew that they would face whatever came next together. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were living. And that made all the difference. Ava woke up the next morning feeling different. The world outside her small apartment was still the same, busy, loud, and chaotic, but something had shifted inside her. She was no longer just a waitress, no longer just the background character in a world that never took time to look her way. Last night had shown her something she had always known deep down but had never fully accepted. She mattered. And she had the power to make a difference, not just for herself but for others too. Sophia had given her that realization. It wasn't just about helping someone else feel seen. It was about seeing herself for the first time too. The morning sunlight filtered through the window, casting soft rays across the room. Ava stretched, feeling the soreness in her muscles from the long walk through the city streets the night before. But it wasn't just physical exhaustion that lingered. There was something else, something more fulfilling. She was tired, but in a way that felt good. She had spent years just getting by, never questioning the path laid before her. But now everything was different. She had stepped off that path and taken control. The sound of her phone buzzing interrupted her thoughts, and she reached over to pick it up. It was a message from Sophia. "Good morning, Ava. I just wanted to say thank you again for last night. I think I'm finally starting to believe in myself. You really changed everything for me." Ava smiled as she read the message, a warmth spreading through her chest. She hadn't expected to hear from Sophia so soon, but she was glad. The girl had so much potential, and Ava could see the change already. She had believed in Sophia when Sophia couldn't believe in herself. Now it was clear that Sophia was starting to believe. Ava quickly typed a response. "You've always had it in you, Sophia. I'm proud of you." She hit send and set the phone down. She needed to focus. It was time to start her own new chapter. The days of waiting tables and hiding in the background were over. She wasn't sure what came next, but she knew she couldn't keep living the same way. There was more to life than just getting by. She needed to embrace the changes within herself, just as Sophia had. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts, and she stood up to answer. To her surprise, it was her neighbor from down the hall, a young woman named Emily who worked at the nearby coffee shop. "Hey, Ava," Emily said, a bright smile on her face. I hope I'm not bothering you, but I heard about what you did last night. I think it's amazing helping that girl like you did. You've got a real heart, you know? Ava blinked, taken aback by the compliment. She had never really seen herself that way. Thanks, Emily, Ava said, her voice softer than usual. I'm just trying to do the right thing. Emily nodded, her eyes gleaming with a quiet understanding. I think you've been doing the right thing for a long time. You just didn't know it. And now you're finally starting to see it. Ava felt a lump form in her throat. She hadn't realized how much she had been craving someone's acknowledgement, someone's recognition. For so long she had lived in the shadows, feeling invisible. But now she was stepping into the light. Thanks, Ava said, her voice thick with emotion. Emily gave her a quick hug before stepping back. Anytime, Ava. You're stronger than you know. After Emily left, Ava stood by her door for a moment, the weight of her neighbor's words settling deep within her. She had always been strong, but now she was starting to see it. She was starting to believe in herself the way she had always believed in others. Ava took a deep breath, ready to face the new day. Whatever came next, she knew she could handle it. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was someone with a purpose. Someone who had the power to change the world, one small act of kindness at a time. Ava stood in front of her apartment, staring at the reflection in the glass door. She had come so far from being invisible, overlooked, and just going through the motions to now standing on the edge of something new. The night had changed her in ways she couldn't fully put into words yet, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't the same person she had been just days ago. She wasn't the same woman who had walked into that cafe, just trying to make it through another shift. Ava was someone with a purpose now. Someone who had learned to take up space, to speak up, and to believe that she mattered. And it wasn't just because of the help she'd given Sophia. It was because of what she had learned about herself along the way. She had learned that sometimes the smallest actions, the quiet acts of kindness, could shift the course of someone's life, even her own. The phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her out of her thoughts. She pulled it out, seeing a text from Sophia. I just wanted to say thank you again for everything. I'm starting that new project I mentioned and I feel ready. For the first time in my life I feel like I can do this. I'm going to make my own name. Ava smiled, reading the message twice, letting the words settle in her heart. Sophia had found her strength. She was ready to step into her own future, and Ava had been a part of that. You're already doing it, Ava typed back. You're already making your own name. She hit send and stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of the message. The girl had taken the first step. Ava had given her a little push, but it was Sophia who had done the hard part. It was Sophia who had chosen to take control of her story, to stop being just a daughter, just a figurehead. She was more than that. Ava knew she was too. She had spent so long being just a waitress, never thinking she had anything special to offer. But now she was different. She had something to offer the world. She could see it now. The lessons she had learned, the things she had taught herself through her quiet resilience, had become her greatest strength. Ava had a life to live now, and it wasn't about surviving anymore. It wasn't about just getting by. She was going to live with intention, with purpose, and with the knowledge that her voice mattered. As she stepped back inside her apartment, she felt something settle deep within her. She was finally at peace with who she was. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been so many moments of doubt, so many times when she had questioned whether she was worthy of anything more than the life she had always known. But now she knew. She had always been worthy. She just hadn't known it until now. The world would see her, not just as a waitress but as Ava. A woman who had the power to change lives, including her own. And she was ready to take that power, to make her mark on the world in her own way. No more living in the background. No more being invisible. It was her time. And she wasn't going to waste it.